Welcome to I Am Creative, the podcast where we embrace the boundless world of creativity. I'm your host, Hollis Citron, here to guide you on a journey beyond the traditional boundaries of art. Whether it's how we dress, how we speak, or how we connect with the world, creativity is at the heart of every moment. Join me as we explore the endless possibilities, celebrate our imperfections, and unleash our creative potential. Ready to breathe in inspiration and breathe out limitations? Let's dive in and meet our inspiring guest for today. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Hollis Citron, and I cannot wait, of course, for you to meet my inspiring guest for today. And her name is Regyna Curtis. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So Regyna is a soul rhythm activator and business mentor. She is dedicated to helping heart-centered, multi-passionate entrepreneurs create a fulfilling, sustainable path to success. With over 15 years of corporate experience in business development and a deep knowledge of energetics, she brings together practical insights and intuitive wisdom and so much more. And ladies and gentlemen, a little fun fact is that Regyna and I have known each other now for 3 years. And 3 years ago, she was on the podcast. So here we go.
Full circle. I love it. And I love your intro. It is so inspiring. I was just like, this sounds amazing. And I was like, oh, I get to be a part of it.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for helping it come to life. You've been on the journey. So Regyna, before we get into the meaty bits,
yes,
we're gonna dive in with hearing a fun fact. So could you please share a fun fact about yourself so we can get to know you a little bit?
A fun fact. I don't know why this is just what came to mind. Maybe it's because it feels really wintry today. But a fun fact about me is I went to school in this tiny, tiny, tiny town, and it was in Vermont, and so we actually had for our PE classes we would go skiing in the winter.
Bougie.
Bougie, right? It was like not bougie at all, but yeah, I don't know, one of the local ski resorts. It wasn't like one of the big fancy ones, but we would go. It was like 2 or 3 times a year we would go skiing for PE class.
But you know what? You do what you know, in a sense, or what's around you.
Yeah.
So it makes complete sense. You're in Vermont, you ski.
You ski, right? Yeah, it was like it was one of those things like, of course you ski. You grew up in Vermont. Everybody skis.
Totally just made me think of a very quick story, everybody. When I was working in New York at the time, it was on the Upper East Side, and it was this music and art school for like 18 months old to like 4 years old. And they do half art, then music. And we had a fire drill in this it was like an older house. And anyway, one of the little kids looked at his adult and said, "Are we going to take a cab?"
Yep.
So you are what you know.
You are what you know. Yes.
In my head, I was like, nobody in the suburbs would ask that.
No. That's really funny.
Just not a thing. So, okay. So thank you for that little window that you went to school in Vermont. So, okay. Regyna, 3 years later, I honestly did not look up what your answer to this question was 3 years ago, because I'm basically asking the same questions with a little bit different, but
yeah.
So today, how do you define creativity?
So I know what my answer was at the time. And I would say that it actually is pretty similar. But the words that want to come through me today are that creativity is your essence as it is expressed.
Your essence as it is expressed.
Yeah. I think the way I answered it previously was that it is the physical representation of the metaphysical. It wasn't in those words, but it's same thing, right? It's all about bringing something from inside of you in this very like personal, metaphysical way, and then expressing it through you in some kind of physical way.
Okay. So this is going to be so great because we want to learn more about you. So, and I want to thank those that are here with us live. There is something in the chat, and I'm going to see who's here with us.
Nice.
Thank you. Please ask questions. Put yourself in the chat so we can communicate with you. Uh, but I call this aligning business rhythms with personal energy cycles. So this is kind of like that inside outside thing.
Oh yeah, that's all me. Inside outside. We'll talk about that a lot.
So let's kind of dive in, give people who don't know you
Yeah.
a little window wherever you want to start of kind of your journey to where you are now.
Wherever I want to start. Um, I'll start with I was kind of a weird kid, and I think that we all are in our own way. I could see things and knew things that I wasn't supposed to know, and not just in the like I was nosy and found things out because that was also true, but I just knew. I just knew things, and I could tell what somebody was going to say to me before they would say it. I saw things that people didn't see. I understood things that other people didn't understand how I understood them. And I think that is still true. However, it's just a grown up version of that now. I have a better vocabulary for being able to explain it. I have a little more awareness of what's going to make someone else uncomfortable and how to navigate that in a way that's going to be a little more tangible and palatable for someone. Whereas as a kid, I would just blurt out like, "This is what I don't you see that? Don't you see that person? Or don't you? Why don't you know this thing? I know it." Um, so I would say that's where it began is just learning to be me, despite the fact that other people didn't always understand what that meant or why I was the way I was.
Mhm. So when you say that you saw
Mhm.
when you saw things, are you saying you saw manifestations, that you saw ghosts, or that you saw, what did you see?
Yeah, I did. But I didn't see it in the way that happens in the movies, right? Like, I never saw, like, the shadow of a person walking along a hallway or, a person standing at the foot of my bed. But I could see so I grew up in a haunted house. I lived with my grandparents, up until about 5 years old, and there was a spirit that lived in that house. I knew everything about this woman. I knew her name. I knew when she lived. I knew she was a school teacher in the 1800s. Her name was Anella. I knew what she looked like. Did I see her sitting across the table from me eating breakfast? No, but I knew all these things. I could see what she looked like. I could feel her presence. I could feel her energy. And everyone in our house knew that she was there. But when I would say things like she was a school teacher in the 1800s and I was like little 4-year old me, they were like, you have a creative imagination. What a vivid imagination you have. But I just she was there, like, she communicated with me and would show me things, and it's hard to explain because it wasn't like we were playing pretend and we would, like, play together,
Right.
but she would share things in a visual way, through claircognizance, and no one had ever taught me what claircognizance was. I didn't have a vocabulary for that, so it seemed like I was just making up stories.
Okay, so let's so here's 4-year-old Regina. So let's go to 15 to 18-year-old Regina.
Hmm.
This kind of like teenage, could be kind of awkward kind of time, but then growing into adulthood kind of thing.
Hmm.
How was that working for you then?
How was that working for me then? That's an interesting question. I was involved in everything when I was a teenager. And I think I don't know. I was the kid. It was a very small school, like I said. There were 50 people in our high school on a good year. It was a pre-K through 12 school. Generally, we had about 150 kids, and everyone knew everyone. We all went to school in the same. It wasn't a one room schoolhouse or anything, but it was like one campus, and we were all in the same place, and we all interacted with each other. But I would say in my teenage years, I really like I fit into every group. I was a part of all the things. And I think it was my way of um, exploring. Like, I've always been really curious about the world and understanding different ways of being and different expressions of things. So I played sports and I was in drama, and I also was an art kid and a theater, well, I already said drama kid, but like music. And I hung out with all of the people, right? Like, I could hang out with an adult just as easily as I could hang out with a kindergartner. And so I think those were the years where I was really kind of testing all of the spaces to understand where I belonged. I think it was the journey of me trying to find where I fit in.
Mm. So I was going to say, I think that you answered it, but was your creativity supported throughout this time? Were you told either by family or people within your inner circle or maybe outer that
Yeah.
creativity was a way for you, or was it shut down at any point?
Yes and no. Um, I was a middle child, so third of four. And so my older sister was the artist, and my older brother was he was the athlete. My little sister was the one who always needed all the attention about she just needed more things. Like she needed, um, she has big emotions. She's definitely an empath, and I think that was a lot of the attention went to her because she was the baby, and everybody else was pretty self sufficient. I somehow both shrunk into the background, but also was like a star of a lot of things. So at school, my creativity was supported. My teachers were very supportive of me. My parents and my family never were unsupportive of it, but it wasn't like I was this thing. It wasn't like there was one thing that was mine because I was kind of all the things. And so it was just like, oh, yeah, she just does a lot of stuff. And, you know, that's just who she is. So I would say that it was supported, but it wasn't like in some ways it was just like, yeah, yeah, that's nice. Okay. So it wasn't not supported, but it wasn't really a space where I felt like I shined.
Well, there was also so many kids.
There were a lot of
So,
kids. Yeah.
and thank you for mentioning it's like those labels. So, those
Mhm.
labels that happen, which then put people in boxes,
Right.
which then can, depending on a person's personality, be like, oh, well, I'm never going to be that person because my sister's the artist and my
Yep.
brother's the athlete and I can't live up to them. Or there's you who I'm hearing in my head like multi-passionate. Like
Yes.
that's
A
how it
hundred
translates
percent
now. Like
multi-passionate. Yes.
so that multi-passionate entrepreneur now, but
Yeah.
back then it was like you had your hand in all these different things and you could do well in them or
Yeah.
figure what you were doing well in. But you weren't afraid to like use the word earlier, explore
Right.
those options. And
Yeah.
you were given the support there to do it.
I was given the support there to do it. And honestly, I'm looking at the Aligns Business Rhythms with Personal Energy Cycles, and so it's bringing up this concept of entrepreneurial exploration for me. I had my first business when I was 10. I worked a full time job in high school, like a full time job with benefits, like 40 hours a week, full time job.
In
Um,
high school?
in high
What was
school,
it? What was it?
I worked at a company called Zutano. I think it still exists. It's like baby clothes, fancy, kind of like posh little baby clothes outfits. Super cute. And I had enough credits my senior year to I think I had one class I had to take. And it was in the years before you would just graduate early and go off to college, right? There wasn't an option for me to do that. So I had to stick around for my senior year, but since I only had to take one class, then I would go in for that one class. And then at 1 o'clock, I think I might have taken a couple classes, but At 1 p.m., I would go to work, and I would work from 1 until 9. I would do the night shift, and my position was called a picker packer. I would get the orders, and I would go and I'd get on this big ladder, like a library ladder, and I would climb up and I'd pull out the little, they had like little bins of these tiny little clothing. They were so cute. And so I'd pull them out and I'd get the outfits and I'd pack them in a box and ship them off. And that was my job. And because I was multi-passionate and I've always been pretty influential to, like, if there's something I really want, I will find a way to make it happen. And so I also was still in drama and played the lead role in the school drama, and I was a starter on the soccer team, and I was in all state flute and choral performances. And so I just made the schedule work. So I would take my lunch break and I would go to drama practice. I convinced my soccer coach to have early morning practice before school so that I could still do the practice and start in the games. And it was just, that was kind of what I did.
Okay, so saying all that just exhausts me, right? Saying all this, but there's also structure, there's scheduling, but at any point with doing all of these things, did you burn out?
Not at that point, but I did when I got to college. I had done all the things. And honestly, I would say that some of that was, pardon me, I just got to grab a water.
Mhm.
Some of that was me just being me. I've always had a high level of energy, a high level of creative um, juice, so to speak, to be able to put into a lot of things. And I also, it was a little bit of escapism. I didn't have a super uh, fantastic home life. And so I did a lot of things to spend time outside of the house. And I did a very good job of spending a lot of time outside the house.
Mm.
So that was part of it. And when I got to college, I thought I would maintain that. That was not the case. And my first year of college, um, I worked a full-time job still because I was paying for my own college, and I was accustomed to working a full-time job anyway. So I tried to do college while working a full-time job. And that was a little bit different. And
Mhm.
I didn't
Yeah.
really do any of the extracurriculars and things like that, but I quickly did burn out from that. And by my halfway through my sophomore year, I had to take a leave of absence because I had burned all the way out and needed some time for like mental reset.
So what did you go to college for and how long did you take off for?
I started out originally it was I was in for not surface pattern design. I was going to go for um, what's the word interior design, and then I had kind of a crappy interaction with one of the faculty members and decided that was not the thing. So instead I did surface pattern design for the first half of my sophomore year, because your freshman year, I knew I was going to be an art major, but I didn't know what it was going to be, and you had to do your foundations year, so it was all about,
Mhm.
like, just 2D 3D art history, those types of things.
Yeah.
And at the time I was doing a minor in French, excuse me. um, Around the time of halfway through my sophomore year, I had to choose my major. Beginning of sophomore year, I chose surface pattern design. Got along really well with one of the teachers. The other teacher was not my favorite, and she just really was very, like, specifically about, like, high end surface pattern design stuff, and it wasn't my style. And so the other teacher ended up leaving halfway through that semester, and that was right around the time where, like, I was just hitting that burnout anyway. So now I was only in classes with this one teacher who didn't really see my vision. She said to me at one time, she's like, um, she's like, no one will ever buy your stuff.
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing feedback. Thank you." It was like, not even, "Here's how you can improve it." It was just, "No one will ever buy it. It's too immature," is what she said. And I mean, it took me a while to recover from that. I think that was part of the reason why I was like, I didn't consider myself an artist for a very long time. Even though I took that leave of absence, I dropped the French minor, um, ended up getting almost a minor in sociology, even though I came back as a non-traditional student, and I went into art education. So when I came back, I did art education with one credit shy of a minor, a minor, a minor in sociology. Um, so even as a non-traditional student part-time, I still somehow did a full-time load. I just worked full-time during the day and then took my classes on nights and weekends.
So you were still working full time. You
Yes.
just took a break from school, but you were still working full time.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
always worked full-time. I think I've worked full-time since I was about 13 years old.
So many things that I'm hearing. Before we, because I really want to spend time in this meaty part of the
Yeah.
aligning your business rhythms and personal energy cycles, because people really need to understand this if they don't already. But just make clear to people what surface pattern design is if people don't know what that is, please.
Yeah, it's like wallpaper and the patterns that you see on clothing, the patterns that you see on upholstery. Um, it's a lot of things. I mean, the store Papyrus, all of that would be considered surface pattern design, which actually I think that my artwork. I didn't know about that store. I think maybe it was becoming popular right around the time when I was getting out of college. And I actually would have totally thrived in that space, like as a designer for them. But the industry at the time was more like Waverly and these kind of like higher end
Mhm.
um, drapes and upholstery and things like that, which it isn't my style. And she's right. I wouldn't have thrived in that environment. But that's what surface pattern is. And so anything that has a pattern on the surface of it, that's pretty much what it
That's
is.
what it is. Thank you. And what you just reiterated there, I think, is very important for people to hear and digest also. So, ladies and gentlemen, who I know, raise your hand. Everybody has some kind of a story where somebody has said something to them
Hmm.
in the past that has resonated with you. So, here at your age, Regina, you quoted what that person said to you
Yeah.
way back when
Yeah.
and how it sat in your body. Some people recover from that and almost have like a fire under their butt because of it. And they're like, oh, you said that. I'm going to so prove you wrong.
Yes.
And other people hold on to it and use it as, well, they said I could never do it. So
Yeah.
I can never do it. Um, so, okay. So you didn't consider yourself an artist, but then you ended up being an art teacher. And then you move forward. And so fill in the gaps wherever you want, eventually leading into the title of our podcast, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I will say, just on that note, I've had both of those experiences, right? I've had the experiences where I took something that someone said and it totally lit a fire under my butt. And one of those, I can say, definitely happened in my entrepreneurial journey just a few years ago, where someone said to me, it's time to shut it down. I think it's time to quit, call it quits. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And it motivated me more than I could imagine. I could have imagined at the time. And that person, by the way, was my financial planner. She's like, it's time to shut it down. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And so anyway, I've had both of those. So went into art education, which is kind of funny, being that I hadn't reflected on it before, that this person saying to me, you're not going to make it as an artist, drew me to go into art education where I was teaching others how to make art. It's kind of a funny turn, but
I
yeah.
know why. I know why.
Yes, Hollis?
Because you wanted to help all those people and not shut them down because they said that to you.
True. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Um, And I honestly think that I hid a little bit behind the label of art educator for a while, because it gave me the space to be in the art world, to support, like you said, to support others in bringing their creativity to life, and to really show up in a space that was more nurturing for people. That's spot on. Absolutely. Um, from there, I in kind of a similar way to my teenage days, I went on a little bit of a journey, a little bit of an exploration through many careers, and they all make sense to me. And so what I'll say with it is, looking back, all of them were helping me understand a certain aspect of myself, and to bring us into the, you know, how your business rhythms and your personal energy cycles align. What happened for me throughout my career was, I said to you, it as a teenager, I began the journey of trying to find out where I fit in, right? And what I learned through my career was that none of the spaces that I tried to fit myself into were big enough. I didn't fit in to any of those spaces. And it wasn't that I wasn't welcome there, because honestly, I never had a problem making friends. I never had a problem fitting in, like, energetically with the people. I was well liked. My work was generally appreciated, and I got good marks on all my reviews, but I never felt like I could fully be me in any of those spaces. And so it wasn't about I couldn't fit in, I wasn't liked. It was that I didn't fit into that tiny box. And the first time I really have ever felt like I can be fully me in the biggest, boldest, multi-dimensional, multi-passionate, colorful way that I am is in entrepreneurship.
That is a really powerful one. I never felt like I could fully be me,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of self-awareness in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this is who I am, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. This is how I want to expand. It's this whole explore, express, expand.
Yeah.
So you were ready for the expansion. You were like, I am not going to sit here and settle and
Right.
be in this job, which is fine, or jobs as you went along.
Yeah.
But tell us about where you've landed in this feeling like you're fully you, because honestly, me seeing you now, and I said this the other day when we were talking,
Mm-hmm.
you are so centered now, because it is understanding that journey. So ladies and gentlemen, it's understanding that journey of how we've gotten to where we are, the good, the bad, the all of that. It's all that scaffolding, it's all that windy road that takes us to a point, and then we're like, oh,
Yeah.
that
Oh, that's why that happened. Yeah.
oh. So that wasn't like me just messing up and thinking that I just took, like, maybe it didn't feel good, maybe I wasn't the happiest, maybe, but it taught me this skill,
Yeah.
taught me what I liked, taught me what I didn't like. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so much
I
growth.
mean, some of the reroutes, we'll say, that I had were more comfortable than others, right? Some were I chose it. I decided it's time for me to move on from this thing, and I want to go explore something else. And I knew exactly what it was I wanted to explore, and I ran for it. Some of them were, I like to say that the universe squeezed me out of the corporate space. Right, it didn't fit me. I needed a bigger, more expansive, more self-driven space, and I kept trying to fit into that groove. And what was happening was I would bounce back and forth between, I would put all my time and effort and energy into advancing my career, and I would do that, right? I would take these strides in my career. I would move up the corporate ladder in some way, shape, or form, right? I would do that work. And what would happen is my soul would just start to, like, fall out of me. It's where I would start to burn out, right? I'd put all my energy into this one space and my energy would wane. And then I would have to, like, kind of build that back up in my spiritual practices, in my
Mm.
self care. And I would kind of go back and forth in these two spaces, putting more effort into, who I am, my spiritual self, my soul, my creativity, my exploratory, drive, all of those things. And then I would put more energy into my ambition and my innovation and my thought leadership and, like, all of that. And I would bounce back and forth between these two spaces until I couldn't do that anymore. They just could not stay separate anymore. And this is where I really had that recognition that I did not fit in these spaces because I could not bring my full self. And I would try to bring in like that creative aspect of myself. And it would be like, ooh, that's a little too creative. We want you to be innovative, but not like so creative that you have purple hair. Like that's a little too far. Or, oh, we really appreciate that you have this like visionary aspect to you. You really are creative and you bring this vision and you have an idea of what people need, but don't talk about empathy or like just your intuition, because that's like if you can't prove it on paper then it's too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of bump up against these spaces where I was both celebrated and kind of shamed for being who I was at the same time. And something inside me was like, yeah, that's not going to work anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. And I found the parts of me that were I was trying to suppress in my corporate space were just spilling out of me. And it was starting to get messy. And I was like, I can't do this anymore, right? I can't try to be something that I'm not. And I can't keep these two things separate anymore. It just doesn't happen. And so I came to the realization that I needed to understand more about energy and how to manage my energy and work with it in a proactive and positive way rather than trying to suppress it. And as soon as I came to that realization, Reiki showed up as it just was like, hey, here I am. Come try this. And when I did that, it just enhanced my intuition and it put me on a very different path. Um, and so that is where I landed. It's how I landed where I am today. And it is really through kind of all of the parts of me. I get to be the nerdy, like total understand like the business part of it. I love to like nerd out about quantum science and the metaphysical world just as much. And I am an artist, an intuitive, art channel, and all of these aspects of me get to come and play in the same space. And so that is what I love to help people bring out in their world as well.
Get to play in the same space. That's
Yeah.
just so fun to hear.
It's fun to do.
It is. It's like get to play in the same space. So tell people about this, because when I heard about what you were doing and heard in the way that you're doing this, it's nobody else does this in this way.
Awesome.
So what does it mean? Tell people what it actually means to align a business rhythm with your personal energy, please. And
Yes,
cycles, personal energy cycles,
I will.
seasons.
Your personal seasons. Okay. So here is what it is. I'll begin by just kind of giving you a prompt, a question for everyone to think about. Is there a certain time of the year where you feel more creative, where you need more rest, where you're more introspective, right? There are different seasons that we all go through internally. And what that means is we're accustomed to seeing the seasons of nature, right? We look out the window. If I look out the window right now, it's cold. It's not actually snowing, but there could be snow, right? It's very like wintry energy, even though we're still like right at the edge of fall technically on the calendar. The winter energy has shown up. And there are certain purpose for that in nature, right? There's a certain purpose in spring. We see babies being born in the natural world, like the little lambs, they're super cute, and like bunnies and all the things, right? Animals are birthing life, and the trees and the flowers are birthing life. It's bringing something into the new. There's an awakening happening. In the autumn, there's a release, right? A changing of the seasons. And so we actually have these same cycles that happen within us as well. And here's the twist: our internal personal seasons do not happen in alignment with the external seasons necessarily. And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, the business cycle, the Q4, like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, that cycle happens on the Gregorian calendar, the January through February, January through December calendar. And what is actually happening if you look at the cycles of nature and the cycles, the energetic cycle of that business, is that we in nature are in the fall season when Q4 happens. Like, okay, wrap it up. We're done for the year, right? But the cycle of nature is only halfway through. It's at that midpoint. And internally, you might actually be just beginning, right? I was talking with someone earlier today who their spring equinox internally is during the fall equinox externally. And so their whole life, their energy internally has been in complete opposition to what's going on in the natural world around them. So, the charting your course system is what I've developed. It is inspired and informed by astrology. It is not astrology necessarily, but we do use your natal chart to determine your internal cycle of development. And what we do is I just take your ascendant and that becomes your spring equinox. There's a whole reason I can go into why about that, but I won't do it right now.
Mhm.
And then the system consists of 5 things. So you create your unique itinerary. It tells you why you're going through different energies at different times of the year. So the when and the why that you're going through each of them. There's an energy forecast. So it tells you, okay, this is what's happening in the external world, and this is what's happening in your internal world. And here's the specific dynamic that it's creating. So, for instance, if someone is in spring right now internally, the external energy of autumn is actually stretching them internally. So there's a dynamic, and all of these happen on a spectrum. So stretching can be super comforting, right? You can be like, oh, I feel stiff and I need to stretch, and I want to stretch into new spaces, and I want to, stretch into new mindsets and things like that. But also, you can get stretched too thin, and then it's uncomfortable. The third part of the system is your wayfinding signs. So these are alignment markers or misalignment markers. So, for instance, you might see alignment markers be things like you feel calm, you experience ease, and you are consistent in how you show up. And then likewise, there might be misalignment markers where you feel skeptical and you are inconsistent in how you're showing up, or you're scattered in your energy. And so these alignment markers help you understand, are you working in alignment with your energy, or are you actually prioritizing something outside of yourself and it's pulling you away from your internal focus? And then the final two pieces are your seasonal success kits. So these are touchstones that you take along with you. They're your provisions for the journey. You go through this cycle each year, and it is a whole journey that you go through. So what are you taking with you? How are you using time, teachers, techniques, technology, your talents? These are all touchstones that you take with you on the journey to make sure that in each season you are supported in the way that you need to be supported best. And then your navigation system is your internal navigation system. It's your soul wisdom. And your soul wisdom speaks to and through you through many different channels. There are 6 of them. So thinking, images, movement, emotions, sensory, and spatial awareness.
Okay, so that's a lot of information. But what I'm hearing, even just kind of taking it down to the basics,
Yeah.
what I really appreciate about this, because I've been through your workshops, and it's just this awareness that lights up where it's like, oh, this alignment, that how it does not align, this traditional concept
Yeah.
of your internally, how you're talking about internal, external. So sometimes you just feel off. It's
Yes.
like things just feel off, and I can't say enough how many times I've said, I don't know, something just feels off. I can't pinpoint it. But
Mhm.
internally, I know that something isn't right, in like, as I'm entrepreneur entrepreneurialing and getting ideas and figuring what my next steps are and taking the steps, but something feels off. Like, maybe I shouldn't be pushing so hard right
Right.
now. I
Yeah.
shouldn't be working so hard. Like, but you're supposed to work hard, and you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do that. But at the same time, my body is kind of being like, no.
Yeah.
So can you tell, like, what is the difference between someone might say, well, you're just being lazy,
Mm.
or what your body physically actually is yelling at you to do because of your seasons?
So usually, so this is where these alignment markers come in, right? The alignment markers tell you, okay, if I'm feeling this way, then I'm working in alignment with my energy. If I'm feeling this way, then I'm working out of alignment with my energy. And so it's one way to help you understand. And honestly, you can use any of those 5 parts of the system to help you understand that. And at different times, you'll need different ones. But let's take the case of, am I just being lazy? So, in this cycle of development, the 12th house, and I think this is a great example because one of the reasons why I started teaching the Charting Your Course workshop was because I was so tired of hearing people talk about new year, new you, set your goals right now and start the year off right, right? And
Right.
then watching a bunch of people get really excited about this, including myself, and then start trying to put these things into action and fall flat very soon after that, right? So, understanding the energetics of what's going on in the cycle is at that time when we come into the new year, we are in the 11th house. So, we're wrapping up the 10th house and going into the 11th house. What that actually means is you've come through this entire energetic cycle. And externally, the energy is very supportive for looking at what the goals are. The 11th house is the pinnacle. You've come up this mountain, you're at the top of the mountain, you can see how you got there, you know exactly where you are, you feel that sense of accomplishment, you can enjoy the view, right? You can see for miles and you can say, ah, that right there, that's where I want to go next. I get that. And so it's why most people are able to at least identify these are the things that I want to do. These are my intentions for the year ahead. These are the things I want to change. Here's how I want to show up, right? That can be really clear. And there's this energetic support for that in the external world. Then you have to come down from the mountain, and the 12th house is that. It's the integration of the entire cycle. It is the building and resourcing your energetic resources so that you can then start to take action again as you're moving through the next cycle. Then, as you come through that threshold of you finish up your 12th house and you move into the first, it's a rebirth, right? And you come into this new energy. But on the way down, you've forgotten all that you can see, right? If you've ever gone hiking, you get up to the top of the mountain and you're like, oh, I'm going to sit down and have a snack because, man, I'm tired. That was a journey. And then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, this is so peaceful. It's so quiet. Oh my gosh, I can think here. It's so clear. All of the things that you were processing while you were walking up that mountain just all of a sudden make so much sense, right? And then you're like, I'm good. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to take it forward with me. And you get to the bottom of the mountain. You're like, where are my car keys? Oh, I got to stop and get food on the way home. And oh, the kids need to be picked up. And suddenly you've forgotten everything that you had that crystal clear clarity at the top of the mountain. So, what the Charting Your Course system is really all about is helping you capture that insight during the 11th house so that you can actually chart your course with intention throughout the year and leave yourself breadcrumbs along the way so that you know you have that clarity and you have that vision and you can bring it with you all throughout the year. And I'll stop there for a second because I feel like there's a lot
That just makes me that just makes me laugh because it's so true. That excitement. You're like, oh my God, such clarity, such understanding. I'm breathing, I'm
there. Yeah.
going inside, I'm like seeing all that. And then there's the external distractions
Yes.
where then
Yeah.
it's like, what was I doing? What you just forget everything. But I think what also stands out to me is in the alignment of your course in the wintertime, it's understanding that rest and restore
Yeah.
that's built into, and again, it's not in alignment necessarily based on when you were born. It's not in alignment with the traditional seasons. So if your winter is in July, like,
Yeah.
April to July, then it's understanding and respecting that. And
Yes.
That understanding,
So
I truly think, is a game changer.
I think it's a game changer too, because so let's just use that example still of the, the external, like, new you, new year thing, right? So we all have this support to see the vision. We all have that energetic support. And then during February, the month where like everybody's signed up for their gym memberships and everybody's like bought the new things that they're going to start with their hobby and their new planner and all the things, then we collectively go into the 12th house, which is that integration. It's the coming down from the mountain. Your clarity is getting less and less. You're getting more and more like into the stream of things that are coming through. That is, I like to also use the example sometimes of the 12th house of like you eat a big meal and then you have to actually digest it, right? So it looks like you're doing the work while you're eating, you're active, you're doing all these things, but your body is actually doing the most work while you're resting and digesting, right? It's why it's like wait 20 minutes before you go in the pool because you got some work to do. Your body is still working. And so we are doing a lot of work during that time. And the work we're doing is fortifying the vision that we just had while we digest and integrate all of what we've been through in this season, in this cycle. um, and then the energy comes back to help us move it forward when the spring equinox comes in mid-March. But most people have given up on themselves at that time, especially if they don't have the internal drive to carry them forward. So I have, for instance, my seasons, and I know Hollis, yours are very similar to mine. You and I are very close to the seasons of nature. So, what's happening there is our internal energy is amplified by the external. So, you and I probably are even more amped up than your average Joe with, like, I know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to do this. This time we're going to make it happen. And then it doesn't happen, right? Because you don't actually have the energy until mid-March. But when that mid-March comes in, if you have a plan and if you've allowed yourself to rest and you've allowed yourself to keep fortifying that vision and clarifying, then you are very proactive in what you can put forth. If your energy is, you're actually at the height of summer and maybe even in fall where you've got the energy built up and you're really able to self motivate and move things forward, you might not be quite as clear on what it is that you're creating, but you're in the midst of creating something anyway. So you have more action motivation to take action. But if you're in your spring and you're just starting to come into this, and somebody's telling you, take this big vision, create a big vision, and you're like, I'm just trying to learn how to use my fingers at this point. I don't like, I just was born into this version of me, then it's really hard to create that vision and then definitely not to put it into action.
I am going to ask you another bigger question, but I want you at this point because it feels right to say, tell people when the next, ladies and gentlemen, you just need to take the course in order to completely understand. So tell them when the next charting your course is, please. It's
Yes,
monthly.
absolutely. So on December 28th, at 1 p.m. Central is the next one.
Yeah. And in the show notes and here, it will be listed. So you can sign up for that, everybody. Because you really need to do it to completely understand. You may hear us and just be like, what exactly are they saying? Like, here's the traditional seasons, and you're saying it's different seasons. Like, what does that mean? And internal, external, like, what is it? Like, it makes you need to take it. That's simple.
Thank you.
And it feels so good with the alignment because
Yeah,
you're not, it's like that whole upstream, downstream.
yeah,
Like, we know that fighting against something upstream is exhausting, but
yeah,
when you're going with the flow of things, it just feels better and it's easier.
yeah.
Um, so okay, here's the bigger question, which is how has creativity helped to heal you?
Mm, gosh, in so many ways. So honestly, I don't think any of this whole system would be possible without me really embracing my creativity. Um, when I I actually was laid off from my job during COVID. And I was creating educational programs all over the world, and that was just not something that was possible. Um, and one of the things that I appreciate so much and knowing about like the way energy works is I had just made a big commitment to the work that I was doing. I put in for my LLC. I made this commitment to myself. I'm going to do this work. I'm going to build this, and I'm going to allow myself to have the, financial resources of my corporate job while I build this. It'll be great. Had this beautiful plan in place, right? Within, so my LLC came in early February of 2020. By May of that year, I was laid off. And so it was like, great, you made this big commitment. You said you wanted to do this. Here you go. Here's all the space to do it. None of the finances to do it, but all of the space. But what happened in that time where I was in the very early stages of doing this, and I was just like I said, it's like, oh, I have these fingers, and what do I do with this? And how do I stand up? Like that infancy stage of entrepreneurship. Um, I also had a whole lot of time on my hands, and I was pretty much sequestered to my house because we were in the midst of a lockdown. And
Mhm.
so I played a lot with my creativity. And I actually really got comfortable being who I am and expressing in the way that I express in all the weird and wonderful ways. And having that space to really just play with my creative genius gave me the confidence to do it in all the ways, right? It was first I could do it on paper, then I could do it as a workshop, then I could actually have a conversation about this weird and wacky thing that I created that is astrology, but it's not astrology, and it is business, but it's not a business strategy. And, just the way that I do it. Um, and that gives me the confidence to help other people see that the way they do it is exactly the way they need to do it.
So, what you're saying, which of course we resonate so well because of this in this play and this expression of what you're talking about, is allowing for that. So, what I'm going to say is, and please add on to it as you see it, is, whether that's cooking, whether that's dance, whether that's
Yep.
listening to music, whether creating music, visual arts, poetry, um, exercise, whatever that is, that play, and then which is all creative,
Yeah.
and then bringing it to paper, like you said, like in a business form. So understanding that within business, all of this is important
It's
because
all important. Yes.
when you allow for this, then the ideas flow, you get the juices flowing, you get the innovation, you get
Yeah.
the all of this happening within the problem solving, you get yourself, it's like, oh my god, I never would have thought of that, because your guard is down. And then so it's moved to paper, or maybe you speak it out, it's an audio thing, and then you move it to the workshop, and then you bring this concept to life.
Yes. Yes. All of that. Um, our creativity, just like I said, our soul wisdom speaks through us in these different ways. Creativity speaks to and through us in different ways as well. So if you're a really visually focused person and images is your top soul wisdom channel that you receive information to you and through you, then the arts, as we traditionally know them, might be, or let's say the visual arts, are going to be more resonant for you, right? But if you have a movement channel as your most dominant channel, then dance might be what it is, or walking, or skiing, but bring back skiing. Um, if sensory is, then cooking's going to probably be something that's really important for you, or maybe even like drumming or something where you can feel the sounds and the sensations. So creativity is going to flow through you in any way that is most aligned for you. And it is most likely also going to be the way that you create best in your business and how you show up to support your clients best in your business through those same creative channels.
Creative channels. Such great information. So, okay, a little repetitive, but it's going to wrap it up, which
Okay.
is, why do you think creativity is important?
Because it is how we birth anything into being. I'm going to leave it
Yes.
simple for that one.
Birth anything into being. Ladies and gentlemen, it's in all of us. It's
It is.
every part of us. It's life. Things didn't exist before and now they do. It's all of these moments. So it's that this is why we're having these conversations, so people can really integrate this concept into themselves, that it is not this traditional idea like I have right on the screen here, creativity goes beyond a pencil and a paintbrush. It's within, it's in parenting, it's in the meditation, it's in the eating, it's in the way we solve problems, it's the way that we, this is what we need in this world, is this problem solving, communication, expression, innovation. This is, it's something that's always been needed, and it's really really needed. That's how we
Yeah,
grow.
I couldn't agree more.
So Regyna, can you please tell people how they can connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. So, if you go to my website, it has everything on there. It's www.atmatry.com. At Matry, for those who are wondering, means journey of kindness towards your soul. And yeah, it's all on there. Also at Matry on all the socials. But I recommend check out the website. Come to charting your course. It's a great place to start. And I know I have a lot of information that I share, but it really is simple to use.
It's very simple. It's
Mhm.
everyday life that just makes the world much easier and better to navigate.
Thank you. That's a great compliment. It's exactly what I hope it to be.
Regyna, thank you so much for talking and playing here. I am so grateful to know you. I am so grateful to be in the collaborative group that we're in together. So why don't you mention that real quick also before I do my little closing?
Absolutely. So, our Mingle Learning Collaborative, and we all have different communities that we bring into it. So, mine is the Soul Wisdom Leaders Lounge. Hollis is I Am Creative. And we are soul guided, heart centered entrepreneurs who are bringing holistic entrepreneurship and just health, wealth, and being into all areas of life and business. And it's a really unique space where we do co-working in a virtual space, but it really feels like a real live space. We do also know each other in person and we visit each other, and but it's a really nourishing and inspiring space to be.
Yes, and Regyna is one of the masterminds behind this with Monica Henderson, and just like, yes. They have created this space which is like beyond belief. So
Well, and you brought us together, you and my crazy dream about the mink and the egg, but
that's a
fun
whole other
story for
story.
another time.
It's a whole other story, and how energy works,
Yes.
synchronicity, and when you're paying attention, how that all works. So, again, thank you, Regyna. Everybody, you want to connect with her. And yes, so here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful to you. I so appreciate you spending the time, because I know that you could be doing anything with your hour. And we so appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us. So, if today's conversation resonated, please like, follow, share, comment. Please spread the goodness. And remember, if you're feeling stuck in your personal or professional life, check out my Get Unstuck membership at iamcreativephilly.com, the same place with Regyna. And this is the beauty of this space, is that it's not just one person that you're joining, but a whole community of people that you have access to. So as a creativity doula, I am here to help you bring your ideas to life and to have these beautiful conversations. So until next time, please take the time to explore the possibilities, express yourself, and expand yourself by doing something just for you. So, on that note, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, wherever you are in this world, and look forward to connecting again soon, everybody. Talk to you later.